This is the age where illusion dissolves. In your early 20s, ambition felt abstract. Big goals, bold declarations, endless runway. You believed intensity alone could bend reality. But now, you've lived enough to question what truly matters. You've experienced your first real setbacks. A promotion that didn't come despite late nights and measurable results. A relationship that ended even though you did everything right. A business idea that stalled when the market didn't respond the way your optimism predicted. Ambition, once romantic, now meets resistance. This is not failure of character. It is confrontation with reality. You are discovering that effort and outcome are related but not identical. That timing, positioning, leverage, and alignment matter just as much as desire. Socrates observed that the unexamined wife is not worth living. At this stage, examination becomes unavoidable. You can no longer run on inherited definitions of success. You are forced to ask whether your direction is truly yours or simply absorbed from culture, peers, or family expectations. You're old enough to know effort does not guarantee immediate reward. Young enough to realize you can't drift much longer without direction. The pressure you feel is not weakness, it is awareness. Awareness that time is not infinite. Awareness that trajectory matters more than intensity. This turning point exposes the gap between who you imagined you would be and who you are becoming. And that gap feels heavy because it demands authorship. You can no longer blame inexperience. You must decide. For years you were proving intelligence, proving work ethic, proving worth. Your resume was your scoreboard. Approval was oxygen. You measured progress by external signals, salary increases, job titles, relationship milestones, visible achievements. But something subtle is shifting. You are beginning to see that external validation is unstable architecture. Titles change, applause fades. Comparison never ends. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." In your late 20s and early 30s, this becomes strategic advice. If your identity depends on applause, your stability will always be fragile. When identity is internally authored, you move with composure, even when outcomes fluctuate. Now the deeper question emerges, who are you building yourself to become? This is the age where identity stops being inherited and starts being constructed with intention. You begin to recognize that chasing someone else's definition of success creates silent resentment. The corporate path that impressed your parents may not align with your temperament. The entrepreneurial dream that once energized you may now feel misaligned with your need for stability. The relationship that photographs well may not provide emotional depth. You're transitioning from proving yourself to defining yourself. That shift is uncomfortable because it requires letting go of outdated blueprints. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." At this stage, clarity of why becomes your stabilizer. Without it, setbacks feel like identity threats. With it, they become navigational data. This isn't panic, it's recalibration. Earlier, speed was an advantage. Say yes. Experiment widely. Accumulate experience. In your early 20s, breadth mattered more than precision. But now, speed without clarity is expensive. You've seen peers pivot abruptly, changing industries, launching side projects, relocating cities, only to repeat the same dissatisfaction in a new environment. You felt the fatigue of constant motion without alignment. Movement alone is no longer impressive to you. Direction is. A strategic pause at this stage is not stagnation. It is architectural planning. No responsible engineer adds floors to a building without reassessing the foundation. Cracks ignored at ground level become structural failures later. William James wrote, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes." Altering your attitude now means shifting from urgency to intentionality. Instead of asking, "How fast can I move?" you ask, "Is this direction structurally sound?" Clarity becomes leverage. It prevents wasted years spent advancing toward goals you do not truly desire. It allows you to pivot intentionally rather than reactively. You are young enough to change course, old enough to understand that every pivot carries consequence. That understanding makes you deliberate, and that deliberation feels heavy, but it is strength forming. The illusion of timelines tells you success should already be visible. Social feeds compress everyone's highlight reels into a single narrative. Engagement announcements, startup exits, executive promotions before 35. It creates the impression of a synchronized race, but real growth is asymmetrical. Albert Einstein stated, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." This principle applies far beyond finance. Skills compound, reputation compounds, emotional maturity compounds. Small disciplined actions repeated daily create exponential results over years. This decade is about foundation, financial discipline when spending temptations increase, skill depth when distraction is constant, emotional maturity when relationships become more complex, strategic networks built not for optics but for alignment. These are not glamorous pursuits. They rarely generate immediate validation, but they compound quietly. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." For someone in their 30s, this is not a warning about mortality. It is a reminder about misalignment. Wasted years are not those spent learning. They are those spent chasing paths you never examined. What you build now will either accelerate or restrict your 40s. The habits you reinforce, discipline or distraction, will shape your optionality later. The relationships you nurture will either anchor you or drain you. The financial systems you establish will either free you or constrain you. You are not behind, you are positioning. James Allen wrote, "You are today where your thoughts have brought you. You will be tomorrow where your thoughts take you." Your thinking patterns about money, about relationships, about risk are not abstract. They are directional forces. They determine your trajectory more reliably than raw talent. Trading applause for alignment feels risky because applause is immediate. Alignment is often invisible, but applause does not compound. The character does, skill does, consistency does, and perhaps the heaviness you feel is simply the weight of responsibility, the realization that no one is coming to define your path for you. No mentor can live your life. No partner can choose your direction. No market can determine your identity. This is the age where drift becomes a decision. Recognition leads to awareness. Awareness demands reframing. Reframing requires ownership, and ownership creates empowered action. The pressure you feel is not evidence that you are failing. It is evidence that you are building with intention. You now possess something your younger self did not: pattern recognition. Not theory, pattern recognition. You have watched entire industries surge and contract. You have seen confident colleagues announce bold moves, only to quietly pivot a year later. You have realized that certainty is often rehearsed, and that many who appear ahead are simply better at presentation. The quiet panic you sense in yourself? It is widespread. Most people your age are recalibrating behind closed doors. They question their career path at night. They revisit financial decisions in silence. They wonder whether the relationship they're in reflects alignment or fear of starting over. The illusion of timelines is cracking. Success is not linear. Careers are no longer ladders, they are lattices. Relationships evolve under pressure. Identities refine through friction. You are old enough to know appearances mislead, young enough to rebuild intelligently. That combination is power, if you use it deliberately. Your first real failures felt personal. A rejection email that arrived after multiple interview rounds, a startup attempt that drained savings, a partnership that dissolved after months of shared planning. These were not abstract disappointments. They were hits to identity. But those experiences sharpened you. They forced you to confront blind spots, communication gaps, skill deficiencies, misplaced trust. They taught you negotiation under pressure. They revealed how you react when plans collapse. They stripped away naivete and replaced it with discernment. Viktor Frankl wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." In your late 20s and early 30s, this becomes a strategic principle. When external outcomes don't shift immediately, internal adaptation becomes your leverage. Growth is not about avoiding difficulty. It is about extracting advantage from it. Failure at this age is not a verdict. It is data. It reveals where your foundation is weak and where your leverage lies. A failed interview may expose a skill gap that, once addressed, positions you for long-term advancement. A financial misstep may teach discipline that compounds for decades. A painful breakup may clarify non-negotiables you were too inexperienced to define earlier. Many who seem ahead have simply not been tested yet. You have. That gives you structural awareness, and structural awareness prevents collapse later. Buildings fail not because of visible cracks, but because of unseen weaknesses. Your early setbacks have already revealed yours. Friedrich Nietzsche observed, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." This is not a slogan. It is a structural truth. Pressure reveals capacity. The adversity you have endured has expanded your tolerance for uncertainty, which is essential for long-term leadership in any domain. Compounding is invisible at first. A skill practiced daily feels insignificant. Reading industry reports after work feels tedious. Setting aside modest investments feels almost trivial. Prioritizing health when deadlines loom feels inconvenient. But compounding is not dramatic. It is mathematical. Albert Einstein stated, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." The principle extends beyond money. Intellectual capital compounds, reputation compounds, trust compounds. The discipline you apply now quietly multiplies your options later. This is the foundation decade. Each focused hour spent deepening expertise strengthens structural integrity. Each intentional conversation expands your network, not in breadth alone, but in depth. Each courageous boundary, declining a misaligned project, leaving an unhealthy dynamic, protects your trajectory. Momentum is not built through bursts of intensity, but through sustained direction. 10 years from now, the difference between disciplined and distracted will be undeniable. Those who chased every opportunity will have breadth without depth. Those who chose deliberate positioning will have leverage. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The obstacles you face now, tight finances, competitive job markets, relationship uncertainty, are not detours. They are training grounds. They refine your priorities and demand strategic thinking. Think in decades, not months. When you zoom out, the urgency softens and the strategy sharpens. A lateral career move that seems confusing to peers may position you perfectly for a future role. A temporary financial constraint may cultivate discipline that grants long-term freedom. The returns may not validate you immediately, but they will transform you eventually. You may need to release an outdated identity. Perhaps you once saw yourself as the relentless corporate climber, only to discover the cost to your health and relationships. Perhaps you defined yourself as agreeable and dependable, only to realize you suppressed your own direction. Perhaps you pursued a dream because it impressed others, not because it aligned with your temperament. Redefinition is not starting over. It is repositioning. William James wrote, "Act as if what you do makes a difference." It does. Choosing a new direction, however small, alters your trajectory. Identity is reinforced through action. Each intentional decision strengthens the narrative you are building about yourself. You're young enough to change industries, to deepen a craft, to pursue further education, to relocate, to leave a misaligned relationship. But you must act intentionally, not reactively. Reactive pivots are emotional escapes. Intentional pivots are strategic recalibrations. Ownership requires courage. No mentor can define your values. No partner can design your ambition. No market trend can determine your purpose. Guidance is useful, but authorship is personal. James Allen wrote, "Circumstance does not make the man. It reveals him to himself." The pressure you feel now is revealing your priorities. It exposes what you truly value when comfort is removed. It clarifies whether you are guided by comparison or conviction. Why do your 30s feel heavy? Because this is the age where drift becomes decision. In your early 20s, drifting felt exploratory. Now it feels expensive. You are not behind. You are at a decision point. Will you continue measuring yourself against curated timelines? Or will you draft a blueprint rooted in alignment? Will you move faster or clearer? Will you pursue titles or mastery? Will you remain in a relationship out of inertia or choose partnership with intention? Socrates declared, "To find yourself, think for yourself." Independent thought is the foundation of self-authorship. Without it, you inherit goals. With it, you design them. What you build now will echo, not as abstract legacy, but as trajectory. The habits you cement, the skills you deepen, the standards you uphold will either expand your optionality or restrict it. The weight you feel is not a burden. It is the gravity of authorship. Gravity is not your enemy. It is what allows structure to stand. The same pressure that feels heavy is the force that stabilizes your direction. Recognition has already occurred. You see the gap between ambition and alignment. Awareness has sharpened your perception. This is not about rushing. It is about positioning. And when you accept that this decade is about structural integrity, not spectacle, the heaviness transforms into deliberate forward motion.